So throughout 2025, we have been discussing the BBC series Line of Duty, right? And this was a show that you introduced to me, and you suggested maybe we take a look at this. And we've been going season by season, month, for it seems like we've been doing this for years
Ever.
now, but it's only been 1 year. Yeah, but throughout the reviews, I have tried to wrap my head and try to figure out why exactly this has such a huge appeal. Because for me, in watching this show, there seems to be a lot of inconsistencies in the way it's executed and the way that these characters are portrayed. Now, to Jed Mercurio's credit, he has sort of improved over time. Especially when we get to series 4 and 5, where where everything seems to solidify. But today we're taking a look at the penultimate series, series 6, because it has been confirmed they are going to be doing a series 7 that will release sometime next year, if I'm correct. And I gotta say, like, I was hoping, that series 6 would kind of cap off what we saw with series 5, but unfortunately, it just became one of those things where you kind of have to wonder if Jed Mercurio was paying attention to what happened in the previous 5 series.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point, and I think that one of the issues with Series 6 is when you're a producer, creator of a show, that you don't know how much more series you're going to have. It leads to creating this final series, potentially, you don't know, but potentially, where you have to hurriedly tie all of these many threads together. And so I think that's kind of what you have with series 6. There's so much. I mean, it starts off crazy and it doesn't let up. I mean, if anything, you could argue and you can say it was too crazy, but were your eyes not glued to the screen? I mean, it was engrossing, correct? You agree with that?
But I will say the series 5 was crazy as well, but it was the good kind of crazy.
Yeah,
right?
It was big crazy.
What? So you mentioned this before recording, but every series, focuses on a detective, right? So whether it's Tony Gates or Ross Huntley or Lindsey Denton, or in this case Jo Davidson, there's something that the detective does that gets the attention of AC-12. But we come to find that AC-12 has been a bit, I wouldn't say a bit, they've been kneecapped basically by bureaucracy. So.
And the other thing we find out is that Kate Fleming has left.
Yeah, that too. So, but the thing that kind of made me scratch my head was, well, AC-12 is kneecapped. So why is it that they're going back to form when when they're technically in the fight for their own survival? Because as these pencil pushers are saying, there's a chance that AC-12 will either get merged or will get eliminated altogether.
Just
right?
Completely, yes.
But Hastings is just going on like it's just another day at the office, and everybody's on pins and needles. I mean, never mind the fact that, to your point, several people from AC-12 left. I know Jatry, she had been with AC-12. She goes on to join Fleming at the, I think, Hill Street or Hill Lane police station. Yes. Not to mention Bindra, she got killed in the last series.
Right.
So right off the bat, you kind of have to wonder what exactly is going on at AC-12, and more importantly, what's going on with Hastings. Because because keep in mind, last series Hastings was on the chopping block, right? Like, he got exposed for for what was going on.
Yeah, and we also, at the end of series 5, if I'm not mistaken, there's the question of the other 50,000, right? And that's like, okay, well, what's that about? And we learned that the widow of John Corbett actually has it in her possession. So like that kind of comes through. So now Hastings, and this has happened through the entire TV series, is starting to look not as upstanding as he likes to pretend.
Yeah, he's not pure. He's not the honest copper that he wants people to look him at. And I will say this. I mean, to Hastings' credit, I genuinely do believe he wants to be that force for good. I think where he falls short is the fact that he thinks everybody is capable, is incapable of doing good apart from himself, right?
That's
I mean,
yeah.
because keep in mind, I think it might have been him who blew the whistle on Steve Arnett to go and get help for his
Testing.
for the testing thing.
Yeah, I think so. But I think like when we go back to what the whole purpose of Line of Duty is, and how you have a cop that's featured in every series, how that cop comes onto their radar is always kind of different. I found the way it was done in this particular series kind of interesting, because we're talking about a former lover, essentially former lover who is confidentially speaking to AC-12 about her boss, also her lover. And that is squishy, right? Like that's kind of like, and so I thought that was kind of an interesting kind of intro to it.
But the way it was presented, it was more like hearsay than actual.
Exactly.
Right. We should look into it.
Right. So we should look into it. So now this is interesting because this is now where Kate Fleming is, right? And that makes it even more interesting. What a coincidence. That's what happened. And so we're kind of looking at this arrest they're going to do, right? They're about to, they receive a call, right? If I'm not mistaken, they received a call about a suspect they believe was involved in the murder of the journalist Gail Vella, right?
Yeah, because Gail Vella was working on an op piece to kind of expose corruption in the police force, and then she gets killed, and her investigation or her murder is the center of that investigation. So, right. So the detective in this case is Jo Davidson, who is serving under a certain Ian Buckles, and she gets
familiar face. Yeah,
she gets word from an insider source that one of the suspects has been talking about. Oh yeah, I was actually the one who killed Gail Vella, and blah 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 blah. But I gotta say, even when they're doing the whole investigation, it just seemed kind of hard to follow.
It was very hard to follow, and you got little threads of things that happen along the way that come out throughout the entire series, and you're like, wait, I'm so confused. Like, it was kind of confusing to follow, but backing up, they're on their way. And I remember, Luca, I don't know if you did this, Jo Davidson said, wait, did you see that? Right? And she redirects them to an alleged robbery that's taking place.
Right.
And I remember rewinding it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. Like, what is she saying? What is, what?
But I'll say this, even if you were to catch it, like, you have to have, I mean, your brain has to be able to process within milliseconds of that, because there's no way that
so the audience is made to believe this can't be right. Like, I think
it's kind of the equivalent of someone driving a fire truck to a house fire, right? But then they see a cat, but one of the drivers sees a cat in the tree, like, we have to stop and get the cat out of the tree.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so now we're like, okay, that's weird. So this is where Jed starts to kind of implant in our minds this mistrust of this cop, right? Like, that's kind of the first time we're kind of like, what? That's weird. And
but it's a weird way to do it, and that's what I don't like.
That was your issue. Okay, so that was your issue, and this was obviously to buy time, right? Was to buy time, but I don't know. The problem that I have with Jo Davidson compared to John Corbett and Lindsey Denton and Ross Huntley. Mm-hmm. She doesn't, I think they picked these actors that they did because they command the screen, and they're almost take charge. I didn't get, I didn't get that from her. Like, there was something.
She was very timid.
Yeah, and she was not your typical cop that they typically profile, at all. And it was an interesting choice, right? And I'm not saying Kelly McDonald isn't a great actress, but I was just like, huh.
I mean, yeah, to your point, because Keely Halls and Tandy Newton, they have a certain way of commanding the screen. Like you can't help but but pay attention to them, right?
I mean, yeah, totally.
But I mean, like Kelly, but yeah, I mean Kelly McDonald, as Jo Davidson, I felt she came off more as timid because even when they were doing the inquiry and the interrogation, like she like just shriveled up. She was like, no comment, no comment. Whereas, she was very defensive and withdrawn. Whereas Roz Huntley and Lindsey Denton, they went on the attack. They were like, well, I got this on you.
Right, they're citing regs, bam, boom, bam, boom, and you almost kind of root for them. I'll be honest. I mean, I don't know if that's kind of Jed's point, kind of, is to kind of sort of make it a bit more grayish when it comes to these cops, where you're just like, I kind of understand where they're coming from, kind of thing. Jo Davidson got no sympathy for me. I mean, like, I don't know how you felt. Like, I there was nothing about her personally that I felt.
I wouldn't say that. It's just I wasn't given enough to work with, because even though she was supposed to be the main focus of Series 6, she was an afterthought, really, because, like I said, it seemed like the main focus was AC-12 just trying to fight to be relevant. And, as the series progresses, we begins to focus more on Hastings, because a lot of what Hastings was doing in the previous series comes back to bite him in the ass later on.
Right. So, and then we also get this idea that this long-running investigation they've been doing is now being undermined by the higher ups, right? Because the higher ups don't believe that this goes all the way up to the top. Like, they're like, this is all in the gangs, it's all low level, whatever so it's almost, they're discouraging it. And that's kind of where we see within the ranks. And this happens through the series where I can't remember what position the gentleman was in, but I thought he was the high, right under the woman, and he was forced to resign. Right?
Sindwar, I think, right?
Yeah. So he
was I think he was the assistant chief constable.
Yeah. So like, he's now forced to resign. So now it's like the top is just like, shut up, let it go. Right. So that's kind of where you have this. Like, you have Jo Davidson over here, but then you have like this threat to AC-12's whole mission and what they have been doing, don't you think?
But that's the thing that I don't like, is the fact that you've got these two conflicting storylines. So then you're like, well, what am I supposed to focus on? I mean, to be fair to Jed, the whole corrupt, OCG bent copper, alliance thing has been going on since series 1, right?
And for good reason, right? The idea is, ultimately, I think, if you think about what Jed might have had in his mind for the entire TV series as a whole, was that it would slowly unravel throughout the series, right?
Yeah, but then by the time you get to series 6, it's like, oh well, we're not going to unravel it. We're just going to dump everything out, and well, let's hope you can follow along, because what was done at a snail's pace from series 1 to 5. We're going to warp 9, baby. Like, well, you better keep up on that.
I don't want to get ahead of us, but what made me think about is, when I was rewatching it, I realized that this particular series is 7 episodes instead of normally 6, right? We're used to 6. It's usually wrapped up in 6 episodes, but this one was 7. I kind of wonder if he was limited, because I honestly think another episode probably would have done the series good. Don't you think? Or do you think it didn't matter? Like, do you think that it was rushed, or it was hope? Like, what, when you think about like these two competing storylines, can you still have two competing storylines, but do it over 10 episodes, for example, if you did it that way?
So this is how I would have done it, right?
Okay.
The main focus, obviously, is AC-12 going after corrupt cops, right? Mm-hmm. What they should have done was, I think, the revelation of Buckles being, being quote unquote the fourth man should have been done. Should have been done in series 4 or 5. right? And then series 6 should have been, you know,
fresh start kind of thing.
right. I think if they really wanted to resolve that, I think it would have gone all the way up to Osborn in series 6. And I would even say Osborn should have played a much more prominent role throughout the series.
And I don't know why he was not even really in any scenes with actors, right? We only saw him through the TV when he was doing, right? He only did 2 press conferences. That was the gist of his role.
And he was only really prominent in series 1 when
that's true.
When Arnett was like, being investigated for ordering the attack on that Muslim guy who ended up just trying to take his kid out for a walk or whatever.
Right.
But my thing is that it's just so poorly executed because where Jed Mercurio wants to go, right? We both know like that's the direction he's aiming for, but it's a very messy journey, and I just kept thinking, if they if that's what you want to do, you want to focus on finding out who's behind all these who's the mastermind that focus on that
investment. This is the investment we've made.
Yeah.
It's all leading up to this. And we talked before we went live that I wonder if it was rushed because he didn't know he would have another season.
Well, I mean, hold on, because in my mind, like as I'm watching this, I kind of get the feeling that that by the time when he gets to the end of the series, he's like, oh, I think this might be the resolution. Oh, I get another series. Well, how else can I stretch this out? Oh, I got another series. Where else can I take this? Because I really wasn't anticipating that. And then by the time you get to 5 or 6, it's like, okay, I think I have a good idea of where I want to go. And then they come, the higher ups are like, yeah, this is going to be the last series. It's like, okay, well, now I wasn't playing for that, so I got to figure out how to wrap it all up.
That's the problem, because we kind of took time off from that, right? Like serious investigation kind of. And not that it was like stalled or anything, but kind of like, to me, like it wasn't as much of a focus. It was kind of it was like a backdrop, like in the background kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, oh boy, here we go. And it's all okay. We're all coming together, but essentially they used Jo Davidson to tie Tommy Hunter to Ian, right? Like to understand.
I felt it was
for that, don't you think?
They did, but I felt it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because
the incest part was weird. But I think that, it was enough to me that was her uncle. And basically, he identified her as someone who was a goody two-shoes that he could use. That could have been it. Like, I don't know why that wasn't.
But not even that. I would say that the Tommy Hunter storyline wrapped up in what, series 2 or 3 when he got killed?
Well, that was Lindsey, right? So they were escorting him in series 2 or 3. When was Lindsey Denton?
I think it might have been 2, because that was the one where
that's Lindsey Denton.
Yeah, because they get ambushed.
Yeah, escorted and the ambush happened. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I felt like that storyline, for however you want to view it, that got resolved, right, with the death of Tommy Hunter.
Yeah.
So in my mind, as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, the Tommy Hunter storyline, that's over and done with. There's nothing else you can do with it. I mean, unless you somehow convince us that the guy who was killed in the ambush wasn't Tommy Hunter. It was just they did. What if they did like a Blofeld thing where they had someone perfectly altered to look like Tommy Hunter? Then that becomes a whole nother mess. But overall, the Tommy Hunter storyline was over and done with. You didn't need to just let it lie, right? So there's no reason for you to bring it back up when Jo Davidson's like, oh yeah, it turns out the guy who's supposed to be my uncle is also my father. And it's like, well, that adds nothing to it, because
the only reason they did that, I think, is to get her to crack. So she kept saying, don't forget, she kept saying no comment in the interview. When they presented that evidence to her, it was such a shock that she kind of cracked a bit in the interview. Don't you think? I mean, you recognize that. Like, once that happened, she stopped saying no comment, and she was like, what? Excuse, you know, and I think that was used to kind of force her to open up. I think that was the device they used, honestly. And it's weird to use that, but maybe they thought, how else are we going to do it? But that's how I thought they did it. That's why I thought they did it.
But you could have used any other method. You didn't have to just use the incest thing.
But did you think that when we were introduced to Tommy Hunter, because remember, Gates encountered him at the golf course, right? I remember in series 1. What did we know about Tommy Hunter by the end of series 2? What did we know about? What did we know about him?
I mean, all we know is that he was one of the higher ups in the OCG,
but that was it, right?
Yeah, that was it. And as we come to find out later on, Tommy Hunter isn't really, the H. He's not the big guy that everybody is going after. So, in the grand scheme of things, he's irrelevant. Which is which to go back to my point, when he gets killed, that storyline gets resolved because he's not going to get you any further than where you need to go, and his role in the storyline is pretty much done, right?
Right. His role is done, but it's still not further explained. I suppose.
But does it need further explanation?
I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna understand. So I guess here's my thing. For me, like once we get to series 6, I still have questions. I don't know about you, but I still have questions. I feel like there's still an H that we don't know about. And as we mentioned before we went live, H became the 4th guy for, whatever reason. I really don't know.
I mean, the H thing was a misdirection.
It was a misdirection thing. So I felt like this journey in series 6 was about, we're finally going to know the truth. Like everything will be revealed. And so I don't know, it seemed like the last 2 episodes, which was like such a whirlwind when Ryan Pilkington died. Like it was such a haphazard flow of information, trying to tie everything together and why this happened and why that happened. It was a lot, right? So it was the only negative I would say about it is it should have been like 2 more episodes. But if you're going to end it, you have to end it some way. That's why I'm more sympathetic to Jed than you are, because you have to do it in some way. Like your argument is this is not the way you do it. You don't do these competing storylines. But I think Jed was trying to tie Jo Davidson somehow to the corruption in the police force. He was trying to tie her to that and make her the final tie that explained everything, kind of, to me. Right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I just keep going to the fact that with all the other cops, they're good to their core. They know, they do something or they say something that we know. Yeah, they do stupid things. Yeah, they kind of found themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
But we know that they're good. They do something that redeems, that's redemptive, right? Whether it's Ross Huntley, arresting Lakewell for for the conspiracy, or Corbett trying to expose who's really going on. We at least know that deep down these are good people.
Well, okay,
but Davidson doesn't really do anything that would make you.
Do you think, if she was bent, corrupt, whatever, would Kate Fleming have died? Right? Kate Fleming, they're telling her you have to kill Kate Fleming, right? He says AC-12 is still on this. You need to get rid of her. She has to go out there with Ryan Pilkington in the back seat. He's like, okay, you're probably not going to do it. I'm going to have to kill her. So then they kind of become this buddy cop movie situation, which was very weird. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
That was a weird.
And they stole Arnett's car or something.
Yeah, like Arnett and Fleming have some kind of deal where it's some extreme exigent circumstance, they have the keys to all these things, burner phones and different cars, and then
I didn't.
Carmichael is trying to arrest Fleming. Fleming is acting like she doesn't want to surrender because she thinks everybody has turned on her. Oh God, that part, I forget what episode that was. That was very weird.
I think it was 5, I think.
Yeah, that was very weird. And then remember, Jo Davidson takes the fall for killing Ryan Pilkington. Is that not redeeming? How is that not redeeming?
I guess I guess I would say like she's very morally ambiguous, right?
Okay.
It's not like she's very definitive and tries to stand up. It's more of like, I'm done with doing this. Oh, there's one more time. Oh, okay. I guess one more couldn't hurt. Her attitude is kind of the same way where someone would say, well, I guess one more scoop of ice cream wouldn't hurt. Like, it's not going to do anything to my waistline, right?
It's interesting because I wonder if is it the character and how it's written, or is it the actress that's playing it? Because
I would say the way it was written, because
Kelly McDonald played a similar role in Gosford Park, right? Like, I've never seen her in a role where she has any type of strength in her character.
Yeah, she's not assertive. Yeah,
she's not assertive at all in any movies or TV series I've seen her in, unless
I was thinking about this too, and I was thinking if they gotten someone like Olivia Colman, for instance,
right,
to do the role. I mean, as great of an actress as she is, she's still limited by what the writing is.
She is. No, she totally is, but it is in the way that you carry that role.
Right.
And I don't know that Kelly McDonald is first of all, she's not someone that I think, and this is, it's unfair to do this, to kind of brand someone like you could never play a cop. But it's not something she like easily pulls off.
It was a very weird casting choice.
It was weird, and I think we should admit that the casting choice was curious.
Right. I mean, but compared to everything else, that's like the least of our concerns, because for me personally, like, you've got all these conflicting storylines, to go back to what I was saying earlier, and I feel like if anything, I would have dropped the whole Jo Davidson thing to begin with. I would have focused mainly on AC-12 just trying to fight to survive and trying to stay relevant. That's
now, to that point, let's be honest here, Luca. Remember, Daniel, what was his name? What was his last name?
Waldron?
Yeah. So remember, he was essentially killed in like episode 2 or 3, right? And then they picked up essentially the investigation he was doing. That really is something that could have happened here. Like where like the cop that is like bent or whatever, right? Like, because he essentially killed someone that he recognized from the care home.
Yeah, from Sandsview, yeah.
Exactly. So like that's something that's to me, that's an interesting way to do the storyline. And maybe that's something they could have done here.
Mm-hmm.
That way you're not like all over the place and learning information kind of in later episodes that kind of sort of tie together, understanding why Terry Boyle was arrested. Because I still, we talked before we went live, it's still not clear to me. Like, Buckles did something, he should have done an activation order when he did some kind of order he did was incorrect. Obviously he did that on purpose. But like, and then the whole planting of everything. So like, if I'm going to like nitpick certain things, it's the casting probably. And the way the storyline progressed, because I think it was jumbled. It was jumbled and it was kind of hard to understand. What are we talking about here? Did we need to have like Gail Vella? The interesting thing about Gail Vella was they had to figure out what was she trying to cover that made her a threat. That's something that they didn't need Jo Davidson for, right?
Yeah.
So like, there, when I think about it, there are a lot of different ways, and I'll concede the point there are a lot of different ways they could have done this story that would have been a bit easier to follow. And still kind of had the same outcome where we discover who the fourth guy is, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, when we learn that Buckles is quote unquote the fourth
guy,
man, yeah, the way that Jed Mercurio kind of like plants these suggestions all around. I don't think it was very well done, because obviously we've already established that Buckles isn't, well, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Plus, you keep dropping all these press conferences from Osborn, who, I mean, let's face it, I mean, he's pretty much saying everything that kind of sounds like someone who would want you to say, hey, get the hint. Yes. I don't want you to investigate. I think he even said, anybody who tries to, deter our work as an enemy, within and without. I'm like, okay, if that doesn't make you stop and wonder if he isn't the top man, then clearly the police system's messed up.
And that's kind of where we get a little Hollywood, we get a little Americanized a bit when the assistant chief constable, who's forced to resign, tells Hastings, you must take the mantle, son, right? Like, he's just like, you have to do the work. And it's just like, okay.
Well, I mean, but to be fair, I mean, Hastings also tells it to Carmichael at the end of episode 7.
Well, so, I mean, yeah, but I mean, I don't know how much that's going to get through to her. Like,
yeah, she's pretty thick.
So. Yeah. So like the thing about Carmichael, she's played so freaking well. She's so good. But what I found interesting was once, and maybe this is kind of how you saw it. Once she saw that there was something going on with Jo Davidson, as the police officer, and they did the arrest, from that point, we don't see her that much. And she was supposed to be the SIO. And I thought that was really weird. She kind of disappears for a little bit.
I kind of had my suspicions about her. I had my... I see. My thing is I kind of felt like she was a bit of a stooge for Osborn, right? She was the stand for Osborn.
That was clear, yeah.
But at the same time, I kind of feel like she, there's something about her that makes you think, she does try to like throw a few roadblocks here and there, but I don't think she's doing this to protect bent coppers. I think she's doing this more of. I'm going to follow the rules, kind of like
the orders, right? Like she's
kind of she's kind of like Arnett from series 1, where Arnett was very straight laced and by the book.
Fair. Yeah, right? I think that's fair. I think that's a fair interpretation of her character. I just thought it was kind of interesting that she kind of disappears for like an episode and a half. It was kind of weird. And like Hastings and Arnett and then Fleming said, they're allowed to kind of, work together with is it Hillside or Hilldale police?
I think it's like Hill Lane or something.
Right, because they do this thing where they're trying to figure out this location that Kate Fleming is trying to find where they
the workshops,
the workshop. And makes the astute observation that there must be some other stuff here. We got to pull the floorboards, because it's like, how are these two guys going to move all of this equipment out? That doesn't make sense. So Ryan Pilkington had tipped them off. They're running there. They're clearly running there to get something, but they did not have the tools to be able to take out these huge machines, right? Like, so what were they actually trying to get rid of? So yeah, I mean, like it was a bit jumbled. What I think is interesting is the so like I think they've already started filming, because when I go to the page on IMDb, they have this kind of cryptic description. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, everyone is back. And with, I think the tag that the summary is, with AC-12 in a precarious situation, Hastings, Arnott, and Fleming handle a sensitive case or something of that nature. That could be any freaking thing. Like, so I think if, this will be interesting to see them start fresh, because obviously they can't look back. Because if they look back, I don't know how much respect I'll have for Jed if he goes back.
Well, can you elaborate on that? Because I mean, we've seen throughout series 1 to 6 where they're trying to thread this needle of of who actually is the fourth man, who's actually the one calling the shots over this whole OCG police alliance.
Right. So when we see the end of series 6, right, the finale, they're throwing into the bins, all these cops that we remember over the years, which was kind of interesting to see. I actually got emotional, but they're throwing in the bins like all the cops. So they're like taking everything away. Right. So to me, when they do the end, they kind of make up all these, like Jo Davidson's in witness protection, undisclosed locations. So we see her new life. We see that Buckles is in some secure maximum security protection kind of thing, like, for his own protection. He's still in prison, but he's in kind of protective custody, so to speak.
Right.
Mary Boyle is now in a better location, and there was nothing indicating any more threads, right? So I got the impression this is it, and we're now starting anew. What did you think? No,
I think if they are going to once they do get around to filming completing series 7, I mean there's still so many unanswered questions on my part because I mean I seriously cannot believe that they seriously think that Buckles is the guy.
It's weird to think that. It's really weird to believe that.
I mean, if they just gotten rid of if they didn't even show Osborn's press conferences, they just showed like a memorandum from Osborn to all of the underlings. Right. It would have made things a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, I think so. And the thing is too, like, let's say Jed kind of wants to revisit this. How long does he have to do that? That's what concerns me. Because we might have a repeat of series 6. If that's the case, Luca, if he's going to revisit this, now we're having 2 storylines again. Like, right?
Yeah.
So that's not ideal. We know it's coming back. Do we know if this is it?
I mean, the way I understand it is this will be it. This will be like the one all be all. I can't imagine someone saying, well, maybe we could do it for another series 8. And it's like, well, now you're just going back to the whole.
It's a little much. Yeah.
So I asked this question at the I think when we did a review episode of series 2, and I want to bring this up because this is something I've been thinking about for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm watching, Line of Duty, I kind of wondered, could this be perceived more as an American cop show than it is a British show? So in other words, would you consider Line of Duty an American show or a cop show? Or a British show?
No, I still think it's a British show. There are elements in it that kind of remind me of things I don't like about American television.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just like, and I'm trying to think The Office is probably the best. I think the only way you could redo, to me, British television is if it's a comedy. But I'm trying to, when you said that to me, I tried to think in my mind a situation where they successfully transitioned a UK drama for American television. And I think UK dramas are so unique in the execution that American TV doesn't do. Like I think Line of Duty is very gray. And I don't think American television likes to do gray. I think they're doing better with that just because of how American TV is now. We have streaming services. They take more chances than they used to, like on the networks. But what you said to me was, let's say this is an NBC or an ABC show. Well, now if you're talking about a network show, now you're talking about appealing to an audience and having advertisers, blah, blah, blah. So now, Steve Arnott cannot have a painkiller addiction. Kate Fleming cannot be living in her car and, being, separated from her husband. She doesn't see her kid. And then Hastings can't have an affair with his, what was that woman?
She was a liaison.
Liaison, right? He can't have an affair with her. Like, you can do one, but you can't do all three. I think American TV has to have likable characters. And the cop, if the cop is the big cop, they're not going to automatically be likable. And I think it's going to be more black and white than gray. And that's kind of what you have if it's a network show, I think. That's, I think, where it will be a completely different series. And the cop is going to be like the worst cop you ever saw in your life. It's like the cop is going to be like the worst cop, right? At home, at work, like everything about him is horrible, right? They're never going to be anybody you can potentially even imagine rooting for.
Well, I would point you to Dennis Franz as Andy Sipowicz in NYPD Blue. I mean, this is a guy who, this is a guy who was crazy, who was like, whatever you want to say about him that applied to him, and yet we still rooted for him. So it's not inconceivable to see a character.
That's a very unique. That's a unique situation, and we didn't see that often. Because NYPD Blue, I don't know how highly rated it was, but like I'm trying to think of, when I think of network shows and I think of characters and I think about European shows, I think about like shows I've seen, like Spanish shows, where like, a lot of times you'll have like a female lead detective who has affairs regularly, and that's normal. Like, you see that and I'm like, I can't even imagine this in American television, because as you know, when it comes to, and this kind of goes back to, remember Grey's Anatomy? Mm-hmm. The creators, I remember they had an interview and they talked about how the network executives were like questioning some of the scripts, like, why would she like sleep with someone that she just met? Like, what did she said? Well, I did it. And they were like, oh no, we can't have, right? Because the woman has to be a certain way, right? Like, so I think there are expectations for characters in American television. We're talking network. We're not talking about streaming or cable or whatever, that you don't have in the UK or even in Europe, that are unfortunate because they don't explore. They're not, they're one-dimensional, right? They don't explore like their failings and their, some of their, strengths and weaknesses, basically. And they don't allow people to be kind of interesting, like they can't be. Like, think of Olivia Benson. How do you feel about her? Like, SVU.
I mean, Olivia Benson's very much. She is very much this woman who's married to her work.
I mean, Olivia Benson. I remember Mariska Hargitay talked about. They did. I remember I watched her Lifetime Intimate Portrait, and her friends were talking about, like, wherever she goes, people that experience things that the show might cover feel comfortable coming up to her and telling her about it. Which is, I think, like, that's her character, but like, what's her weakness? Like, she's married to her work. That's a weakness. But is it valid? Like, what else? Like, there's nothing about her that's like bad, or like it's like, is she a well-rounded person? The thing is, she was a product of a rape, right? Like, her mom was raped. We know that. Her mom died. Her mom was an alcoholic. That's standard fare in American television, but she's not a well-rounded character. And I think that if her character was done in the UK, there would be more to her. And that's kind of what I think American network television misses. They don't do character development in the same way the UK does. And I think
are you talking about just solely like American television in general, or
network television? Network television. It's sanitized.
What about? I mean, but I would offer the counter argument. I mean, you can look at shows like 24 or House. I mean, Gregory House was someone who was, a very well-respected doctor, but yet he had a Vicodin addiction, and that he was doing all these.
Fox is a bit different. We said NBC or ABC.
No. Hold on. So, okay. So all I asked was, would you consider it that I proposed? So my main thing was just focusing on, would you consider Line of Duty American or British? So
I think it's British with American elements.
Okay.
I think it's with American elements. It still operates in a gray area. I think it still operates in a gray area. And that is something American network television doesn't like to do. House to me was revolutionary, and I think that's why it was like a media darling kind of. It was very different, right? Like he was played very well by a British actor, but played very well. And yeah, I thought House was kind of revolutionary in the way that it portrayed the main character. And I think that was at the time kind of like, whoa, look at this. Like it was a big deal when it did. I think that's how I saw House. Kind of like I don't want to say it's I don't know. I don't want to say revolutionary, but different than what we were used to for television. And I think, because that's why I prefer British television, and I hate to be that kind of person that's just like, I refuse to watch network television. I don't watch it, but I think that, with streaming, we've gotten a lot of interesting content. I think it's allowed creators to do more and have time to do more. Some of these streaming services are really like shelling out money, like for some of these TV shows, So I think, it's different now than it was 20 years ago, I think. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, because when we look at British, police dramas, usually the main focus is going to be, on one particular character. So, like, think of Inspector Morse, Inspector Lewis, Luther, that kind of stuff. Here, here it's more of an ensemble cast. You're really not focusing on primarily just the one person, which is typical of what you would see with American television shows, where it's not particularly one person. I mean, with Law and Order, you could say, you could ask one person, they'll tell you, yeah, I'm focusing more on Olivia Benson, and someone else could tell you, well, I'm focusing on this person here or that person. So it really depends on how each character will speak to any individual person. Not to mention too, for the most part, it's very fast-paced and action-oriented, right? And
that I agree, and that's the thing that I rewatch. Obviously the Furlough. I don't know if we talked about the Furlough, but I was furloughed for however long. I watched a lot of TV, but I also rewatched a lot of TV, and I went back and watched Law and Order SVU, the first season. And, it's very procedural. The storylines are great. So it's like, it's okay that Olivia Benson is like, the character development isn't there. The storyline is good enough. That doesn't mean it's bad, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, it's still okay. And so that to me is not a knock against American television per se. But it's just, there's kind of a difference. There's more of a focus on if the story is good, it's fine. But in terms of the characters, UK really, I think they do such a better job of that. And whether that is a positive or not, we can leave that open to debate. Like whether or not, do you want to know that, Hastings is having an affair with so-and-so? Do you even want, do we want that? Like, I don't know. So, but it is something that they take pains to do because they continue to do it. Like, so it is just a difference in approach, I think, like how they go about it is just different.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but I gotta be honest, Luke, I'm really curious about this series 7. I mean, I'm going to be watching. I don't know if you're like, tell me what you thought and maybe I'll see it. Maybe I won't. What are your thoughts? Are you curious to see what they do?
Well, let me go back to my main point because because I'm still laying out what I'm talking about here, and then I'll answer your question later. So with Line of Duty, we're not treated to focus on just one particular individual, right? It's not solely Hastings or solely Arnott or solely Fleming. It's like a combination of the three. The storyline is very fast-paced. It's very action-oriented, right? I mean, we see a lot of guns drawn, a lot of action, a lot of shouting. Everything's moving fast-paced. You kind of have to hold on for dear life as you're watching it. Not to mention too. I mean, because this is something that I've noticed as well. There seems to be a lot more openness to romance than what I've seen in previous shows, like Inspector Lewis, for instance, where if there was any hint of a relationship, it was very platonic, right?
Yeah, I mean that wasn't even. I agree, because Inspector Morris was essentially a bachelor, right? I'm thinking of, obviously I'm going back, that was Lewis was his protege, but I'm thinking of Inspector Morse and even Inspector Frost, who was my favorite. Him and Perot were my favorites. Like, they were both single, I believe, right? Morse was single, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So his whole thing was that he went to Oxford, right? Like, so, but his approach to the investigations, because he had the wit and then he had no patience for fool. Like, I just love that. Like, that's, I think, what I love most about Morris, and especially Perot. Perot is bougie. Like, that's kind of different, right? He's extremely bougie and he suffers no fools and he looks down on people, which is, I don't know. It's like he has faults.
Right, but it's not faults to the degree of what we see with Line of Duty, because Line of Duty is more. I mean, it's more overt, shall we say? Because we're treated to Arnott having a drug problem. We're treated to Fleming having to deal with family issues. We're treated to Hastings making these decisions that end up costing him his marriage, right? So these are these are typically things that would be more, I wouldn't say more readily, but more familiar to American audiences, right?
I agree.
Because with the British sensibility, it's more of like, well, these are things that we're willing to discuss, or we're willing to explore, and these are things that maybe in a polite society we shan't really focus too much on. It's too scandalous.
Yeah, but exactly. And when you think about AC-12 and the work they do, I think American television is more likely to argue that persona they have in their work translates to their personal life,
mm-hmm.
which is something that has always bugged me about that. Like, you're upstanding, but oh yeah, of course you're like that in your personal life too. It's like, no, what? Why would that be? Like, that's crazy. Like, why would that even be the case? That doesn't make sense. But I think the UK is willing to go there in the way that network television in America is not. And if American television does it, they might do it, like I said, with one character versus all of them, right? Like according to the UK, everybody has issues, which I think is fair. I think that's fair. Don't you? Like, it's fair to say that everybody has issues.
Yeah, but I mean, from what we've seen in previous shows, it's something that's rarely explored. So Line of Duty kind of occupies that unique space where they're exploring things that typically wouldn't be explored in a normal sense. But I would also add too that the characters in Line of Duty, they're far more emotional. They're not as
Oh my God, yes.
they're not as contained as what you would. I mean, even Luther, has got better control of his emotions than Arnott or Fleming or Hastings, right?
Think about Arnott in season 1. Like, he goes all in on Gates, right? Like the way that he interacts with Gates and the way how he is emotionally invested in it, like it kind of crosses the line, like, right? Like it's that's something that I found really interesting, like that he does, like, and I don't know how you felt about him having this relationship with John Corbett's widow. Like, did you think that was out of bounds, for example?
I mean, in American television, I mean, you're familiar with the saying "sex sells," right? So, I mean, it's not too out of the ordinary to imagine, cops, sleeping with each other, or as you gave with that example with Shonda Rhimes. I mean, people just sleeping with each other willy-nilly. That's something that, because that's something that's, I wouldn't say it's common fare, but that's something that we see quite a lot in American television, which in British television, again, I it's not something that's explored too much. It's only been looked at probably within the last decade or so.
And I'm trying to, a sex scene. How many sex scenes have we seen in this whole series?
Well, we've only seen, well, to my recollection, I've only seen the one where he and Steph Corbett, sleep together, right? But it's not.
Right, but we don't see it.
But it's not overt like what you would see like in any other show. But
right.
but still, to suggest or to portray elements of it in there, that's something that you wouldn't have seen in other shows.
Yes.
I would also add too, as part of my argument, that with these characters, you mentioned Poirot, you mentioned Inspector Morse. These are men who kind of, who buck the system and who kind of have an individualistic, approach to things, right?
Yeah, totally.
Morse does things his way, and that's the way that the system accepts it. Whereas
it's also source material. We can't forget that.
That too. Whereas in Line of Duty, it's very much a collaborative effort, right? As much as Arnott wants to do his own thing, or Hastings does this or that, for the most part, they pretty much act as a cohesive unit, which is what you would see in like SVU or NCIS.
Totally. And that's appreciated. I think that you can have both, obviously. Like, if you like the personality, it's enjoyable to watch. Like, some people, like, I remember I heard somewhere that Agatha Christie at some point she started hating the character Poirot. Like, she got to the point where she literally hated him. Mm-hmm. And she literally created and wrote it. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but as long, the mystery's good and you like the character and he's played so well. And I know Kenneth Branagh played him in the Murder on the Orient Express movie, but I think of Poirot as David Suchet.
Yeah, same here.
So he's the end all be all. Like, he is just, tell to me, please. Oh my God. Like, I just love what he says. Tell to me, please. Is that what he said? Tell to me, please. Or something. It's just, the Belgian detective is just.
So to conclude my argument here, essentially it is an American show, right? But it has, but it's set in the UK, right? But formally it's British, but substantially it's American in nature, right? And it wouldn't be too. And if I were to watch this on American television with an American cast, like they transplant some of the storylines here, I wouldn't do a double take like I would with something like The Office, for instance. So this leads me to my next thought experiment. This is something that I was thinking about as I was watching Series 6. So if they decided to adapt this for American television, how do you think that they would go about it? And more importantly, who would you think would be cast in the central roles, right?
So I think that when I think about American television, I wonder if they would want to do an anthology or if they would want to do it as a one-off episode by episode. Um, you know, I think that the better course of action is to take one copper and follow the storyline. It doesn't make sense to have like 80 different, right? Like cops that you're investigating. And I'm trying to, as we're talking about this, think about other shows. Every show, every American TV show that chronicles cops, they all look at internal affairs as rats, right? Like as the most horrible thing possible. And so I do wonder, I've always wondered, what kind of work do they do, right? Like I remember the guy that played the internal affairs rep in SVU, just as an example, because that's the one that comes to mind initially. I think about that. And now I think you have to still do an anthology, first of all.
Yeah.
What I don't know is if it's network television, they tend to drag things out. And so, the investigation itself will probably be slowed down a bit if they're going to make the 20 episode, limit that they do, right? It's always like 20 to 24 episodes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kate Fleming could easily be a young Olivia Benson, Mariska Hargitay. I mean, that they would easily go, but if we're talking about contemporary people, if we're going like age appropriate, I think that when I think about like an actress or actor that could play a female actor that could play that role, because there were times in the series as a whole where I just really disliked her. It's Steve Arnott the same way. So those elements kind of have to be incorporated as well. So I have to think about it like, okay, who's good with being hated? And Hastings has to as well. So I'm thinking to myself, who is good with that? And I'm thinking like, when I think of TV actors, it doesn't compute. So I have to think about movie people.
Yeah. So
I'm thinking for the female actor and then Steve Arnott, I'm really drawing a blank to really, the swarmy guy that like, gosh, I'm really drawing a blank. I'm thinking Mariska Hargitay and Kate Fleming, that would work. And now I'm being kind of historical here because obviously Mariska is a bit older now, so it doesn't translate. But I think that would work. Steve Arnott can't be someone that is likable. And who is that in movies? Oh, the kid that starred in Saltburn, the Irish actor.
Barry Keoghan.
Yeah, I could see him. I could see him. Hastings is interesting, and I'm so sad that I don't think of American actors. They don't come to mind. I'm thinking of a foreigner. I think it would be a foreign actor. But someone self-righteous. Who are you thinking? You don't have anybody in mind.
So here's how I would take a look at it, right?
Okay.
So in terms, so I'm going to start with Arnott. So the characters overall, like they would be recognizable, but the names would change, right? So wouldn't necessarily be Hastings, Arnott, and Fleming, like it is in the UK version. I'm thinking for Arnott, it would be more like Arnett, like Will Arnett. So it would still have that Arnott, vibe, but it'll be Arnett, probably like Steve Arnett or Sal Arnett.
Yeah, but the thing about him is taking him out of the comedy realm. I still think comedy when I see him.
No, I'm not talking about Will Arnett. I'm just talking about the name. Yeah.
The name. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So in the American version, Steve Arnett would be, I don't know, either Steve Arnett or Scott Arnett, something like that. And I imagine, and the way I see Arnett in Line of Duty is he's this young guy who's up and coming, who is trying to prove that he can do the job that is required of him, right? But he makes all these mistakes at the very beginning, but he kind of improves as he continues, because in series 1 he's very much gung-ho. He's going after everybody associated with Gates, and he ends up, well, he almost loses a finger as a result, right?
Right.
So in this case, if I were to cast someone to play, let's call him Scott Arnett, just for the sake of it, I would probably get Joe Keery from Stranger Things, because he has that vulnerability. He's, because the way he plays the character in Stranger Things, it's like this young, vulnerable guy who's very wide-eyed, who is just trying to figure things out in the world. But he's willing to make a few mistakes, but he's going to improve, right? Because he starts off as a bit of a prick at the beginning, but he becomes more likable as Stranger Things progresses. So I think Joe Keery would make a pretty good, American Arnett version of the character, right?
Okay.
Hastings, the nature of Hastings is he has this holier than thou attitude, very religious. He's saying, Mother of God or Dear God, something like that. You also have to
incorporating the his heritage, right, in a lot of his verbiage, like his lines, all the time. He's always doing that, and somehow that makes him kind of, I don't know, potentially endearing, but he's always like, we girl, we lass, he does that all the time, like in his verbiage, right? Yeah.
So for the Hastings character, I want to keep in mind that this is someone who is deeply religious but deeply flawed, right? But someone who at the end of the day, comes off as a moral, as the moral compass of the group. He's very much an authority figure, a veteran, a guy who's seen and done it all, right? So Hastings, in this case, he wouldn't be called Hastings. I mean, I wouldn't even make him like Caucasian or anything like that. I would probably call him Howard.
That's an interesting point. And oftentimes that's what American television will do.
Yeah.
That position will likely be a minority. I agree.
Yeah. So I would probably put Delroy Linden in the role of, let's call him Howard, for instance.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Because we've seen Delroy Linden play, an authority figure. The big one that comes to mind was in The Last Castle, where he plays that general who's a friend of Robert Redford's character, right?
In the good fight, right?
True, yes.
Right? Like, so he's like one of the partners. So he's the one, remember, he's the take charge one. He does that controversial interview about the N-word and all this stuff. He's really good and commands the screen.
Right. And
that's fair.
Right. And I think that Delroy Linden could play the character in such a way that this is someone you would go to hell, follow him down to the gates of hell.
Oh, I agree.
Back. But at the same time, you could also believe that this is someone who's probably doing things that you don't know about, and if you did know about it, you don't want to know about it.
You don't want
to. But at the end of the day, let's call him, Superintendent Howard. This is someone that you respect. This is someone who commands respect in all levels, right?
And he would, yeah. And has he played so in Last Castle, did he play a cop or was he a warden or what? I didn't see Last Castle.
So in the last Castle, he plays a high-ranking general who offers to get Robert Redford's character out of military prison. Right?
Okay.
So actually we did a review of that, so you can check that out. But for the last character, Fleming, I would say she's probably the youngest out of all of them. So whereas in the British show, Fleming, she's kind of seasoned, she kind of knows her way around. She's already in AC-12 and Arctic comes along. I would flip it a little bit where she's probably the newbie, right?
But she's the one that always goes undercover. So how can she be? She's the newbie, but she has to be high achieving, right, to be able to manipulate.
So here's my thing.
Okay.
So the American version of Fleming would be young. So she comes in, she's a rookie, but she kind of proves herself as someone that there's something about her personality that makes you want to trust her, right? Because
Okay.
we all
Okay.
know that one person that when you meet them, you automatically think, I can tell her anything I want, and I know
Right.
she'll keep
Right.
that secret. She's
All
very
trust.
sweet and trusting. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would imagine that when she starts off and she goes undercover, right? She's walking the beat. She's just a normal rookie cop who's just learning other things, and because she's a rookie, right? She could probably like sort of like coax people into telling, hey, so why is it that you guys are going after this group, but you kind of leave these guys alone? Oh, well, we kind of have a bit of a thing going on with them, but this is just something that you'll learn, kid, but just keep it on the down low kind of thing.
And she doesn't have a paper trail, right? It's easy for
Yep,
her to
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Fleming in this case, will maybe give her the name of I don't know, like I'll call her like Perez or Peralta or something like that, right? I was thinking of one actress, Amy Lou Woods from The White Lotus. She has that. I mean, and here's the thing
Is
that
she
I
the
like.
one from which season? The most recent season?
I think so. Yeah.
Was she the one that was the girlfriend of Walter Goggins?
I think she might have been. I'd have to double
She
check
was
on that one.
excellent. She
But
was excellent.
but you could sort of see where I'm coming from with her character, because the way she comes off is she's very sweet. She has that sweet innocent look on her face, and I think too, because if you have Joe Keery and Amy Lou Woods kind of playing off each other, both of the youthful energy playing off each other, but Joe Keery kind of brings like this more of like, well, I've seen and done a few things more than you, so maybe watch out for what they're telling you here, or maybe pay attention to this. And Delroy Linden's character can sort of act as a father figure to her and kind of guide her through that process. And I would even change the story to where, Peralta, I'll just say Peralta for the sake of argument, who's the American Fleming. She's very,
I remember her.
We keep the broken home backstory, but instead of her being separated from her husband, maybe it's more of an estrangement from her parents or her father. Kind of something similar to what we saw with Jo Davidson, where she really didn't want to talk about her family. Maybe apply some of that to the Fleming character, right? So in this case, the Hastings character kind of has like a more protective, fatherly kind of role towards her and wants to protect her, but also understands she kind of has to be put in that position so she can kind of figure out what's going on here and kind of expose what's happening, right?
Do you think it would work? I mean, obviously you have to have a good showrunner, blah, 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 good writer. Do you think it would work for network TV, or do you need more of a, big budget kind of Apple TV or Netflix kind of showrunner thing where they only do 8 episodes similar to the UK? Or do you think a 20 episode arc would work? Do you think that would work?
I say with the way things are going, you would probably do it on streaming, but it also depends on a really, really good showrunner, right?
It does. Oh, totally it does.
So the showrunner part kind of made me think a little bit, because initially I was thinking Taylor Sheridan, but I was like, that'd be a bit of a stretch for Taylor Sheridan to kind of go into that realm.
Yeah.
I was thinking, honestly, I was thinking like if you got a really, really good showrunner, who would it be? Because it's someone who would appreciate the original British, but at the same time kind of add a bit of American flavor, kind of like what Greg Daniels did with The Office, right?
Right, and it's really hard to translate. Remember, it failed with Coupling, right? Coupling is like one of my favorite UK comedies.
Right, but then when they brought it here, it was more like a Friends,
and it just didn't work. It just completely failed.
Well, to be fair, they were trying to force Coupling into that Friends mold, right?
Yeah,
which doesn't work because Coupling was never like Friends to begin with, not in its original form.
Yeah,
so,
but the other thing, sorry to interrupt, but the other thing I think is kind of important is the structure when they say, you know, the UK says the OCGs, right? That's not how, in my opinion, when we think about police dramas and police procedurals, they don't look at it in that way. It's a one-off criminal, right? Or it's maybe a tandem, right? A duo or something like that. It's not a gang per se. And that has to be changed. We're going to have to switch to something different. And I think that, I don't know if do we need to set it in a different time period, Luca, where we're going back to the mafia? Do we have to set it that way, and that way it would work?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
If it's contemporary, who are these gangs in bed with these corrupt police officers? How is that going to work? Is it drug? Are we thinking more in terms of drug families, for example? Are we going to create a drug family where we chronicle the drug family and officers?
Sorry to interrupt, but I would refer you to Ozark with Jason Bateman.
I'm so sorry to say, one day I will finish it, but I have not yet.
I say you take the model with Ozark and you kind of apply it here with the whole, you know, it starts off as a simple white crime thing, but it kind of snowballs into something bigger and bigger and bigger. That's the way that I would approach it.
Okay.
If you had to force me to pick a showrunner, I would say you would want to get the same showrunner who did True Detective, right? Because True Detective, because they would appreciate the way that, So I would probably go with Nick Pizzolatto. That's the guy I'm thinking of. Nick Pizzolatto, the guy who created and was the showrunner for True Detective, because they understand the whole anthology process, and they understand the way of structuring the show within the American context. But I firmly believe that he would also be appreciative of what happened in the original British, to kind of remain faithful to some of the elements while making it unique to the local flavor.
Do you think, if it's an American, let's say, so we're thinking about this in terms of streaming. So let's say it's 8 episodes.
Yeah.
Does it need to be grittier if it's American?
Yes, because when it comes to these American shows, it has to be gritty, right?
Yeah,
so
I agree.
So a lot more blood, a lot more action. Yes. But I would say it would also be compelling. Now, the trap that Jed Mercurio fell into, and that I think Nick would be smart enough to avoid, is having all these loose ends and trying his best to try to tie them all, right? Maybe leave a loose end here that kind of gets translated into season 2, right? So maybe don't feel the need to, because I felt like with season 6, series 6, Jed Mercurio was was trying to type every loose end that was possible, right?
Yeah, I agree. That is, to me, that's something that's so delicate, I assume, for a showrunner who starts off with a pitch. We're going to do an American version of Line of Duty. Here's what I see happening. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to give you 1 season and we're going to see how it works. So now, if it's 1 season, how am I going to storyboard this? Am I going to, right? I think
they follow the internal affairs, like you said, because that is the core of what Line of Duty is, right? But maybe, like I said, include a little bit element of Ozark, where maybe one of the police officers' spouses, who works as a financial advisor, kind of gets tied into, because you mentioned this earlier. Maybe they have a connection with someone in South America, right? Maybe someone who deals with investments, with like let's say like a Brazilian real estate developer who's actually the leader of a branch of MS-13 or whatever.
And I think you have to go that high. I think you have to go transnational in terms of the gang. I think,
Yeah, exactly,
right?
exactly.
Like you kind of have to. I
Because
think you have
because
to go there.
because
Yeah.
the line of duty, it's very localized, right? It's
Yeah,
very much.
it is. It is very localized. And I think if it's an American, you're going to have to talk about a gang that has some serious sway, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's important. What's interesting to me is where you're going to have it, right? Like you can't have it in, you know, middle America, right?
I wouldn't put it. I wouldn't put it in New York.
No,
or
I'm
LA.
thinking Miami. I'm thinking Miami. No,
No, I wouldn't do Miami. I would probably because the thing about Line of Duty is we never really know what city the story is set in, right?
no, we really do.
They mention Moss Heath, and then Fleming asks Arnott if he's going to drive to Liverpool.
Vague. Yeah, it's kind of vague. I think that's fair.
So here's my thing. So if they were to do it, I mean, they would they really wouldn't name the city, but they drop hints. But they drop hints of where it might be. Personally, I think they would probably film it in Atlanta. That's what I'm thinking, but they don't really say it's Atlanta.
Southern. You're thinking Southern then, right?
Well, it's got to be pretty close to South America.
South America, exactly, right? Yeah.
So I guess
yeah.
So I guess if you really wanted to go there, I guess you could say it's set in Texas because of the whole migrant crisis. Maybe that might work.
I actually think Texas, if not Miami, somewhere in Texas works for me.
But I would say like they would film it in Atlanta, but they would kind of drop hints about where it is. So maybe so maybe Peralta says, the governor signed another order about the border patrol. I mean, it's going to be a shit show there. So you can kind of extrapolate what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
So you asked me earlier about my thoughts on Series 7, and honestly, I don't really know what to expect because part of me hopes that they finally nail Osborn. That's my main focus.
Well, that's
do they really, or is it one of those things where Osborn kind of meets his fate the way that Hilton met his fate? Just sitting on the dock with the shotgun up his, chin.
But do you? So like what I'm hearing from you is you still want them to revisit what really happened. That you felt like what we got from Series 6 is not.
It wasn't a proper resolution.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly what I'm hearing from you is the resolution has not happened and that we need that resolution in Series 7. Right.
I mean, because here's my thing, because if they do Series 7 and they say, it's set at AC-12, okay, it's set at AC-12, that automatically lets me know they're still doing the whole anti-corruption thing to one degree, right? Mm-hmm. If it was one of those things where they come back and say AC-12 is disbanded, it's gone, then
obviously it's not gone. There's no way it's not gone.
I'm saying if
people. Right. No, I get it. No,
So let's say for the sake of argument, if AC-12 were disbanded and it's gone, then maybe Fleming, Arnott, and Hastings kind of do their own underground investigation, right? Right. But because here's the thing about Line of Duty, because the whole linchpin is the fact that they're dealing with anti-corruption. So for them to go in another direction, like counterterrorism, they don't talk about anti-corruption. It would be. It would make me dissatisfied, because then it kind of just discontinues what the whole purpose of the show was to begin with, right? That's how you sold Line of Duty. It was about an anti-corruption unit, and if you did Series 7 and it didn't focus anything on that, it would be like,
now it's like this is a completely different show.
I mean, why call it Line of Duty if you're not going to focus on that? You might as well call it, the thin, I don't know, the thin blue line or whatever. I know it was a Rowan Atkinson show. I'm just saying. I mean, I couldn't think of anything else on the fly. But that's my take. Like, if they were to adapt it, they would change the names. They would probably alter the background story of the characters a bit. I think the actors that I named, I think they could properly portray them the best way possible. I would even say, and let me know what you think about this too, I think Courtney Cox could do a pretty good job with directing one of the episodes.
I don't know much about her post Friends work.
I mean, I mean, some of the stuff that she's directed, it's pretty decent. I could see her actually, directing, something that's a bit more action, driven, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That's how I see it, because because when you're adapting something like Line of Duty for American audiences, obviously you're not going to do like a shot for shot remake of that, because it makes no sense, right?
No, I know. And as you say this, I'm thinking about kind of what we remember from like the opening scenes of each series. Like the first episode, it's like for me anyway, I'm glued to the screen because I'm like, okay, this is going to happen. I got to follow everything. And it's so frenetic. It's kind of frenetic. I'm reminded of series 5, which really was because of how it happened. It was amazing to watch that robbery taking place where they do the distraction with the woman and the fake baby and all that stuff, and the boy, right, the ambush with the police officers. It's like, whoa, but I think I think that's something that American TV they can do that. Like they can do that now.
Well, what I would also add too is that if they were to do this line of duty adaptation, they would definitely pull more from the headlines here than what you would see.
That's what the UK does. The UK case, like that's what I found so interesting about series 6 is, and that's throughout actually the whole TV series is they're talking about the Gary Glitter, Jimmy Savile, and there were implications that high-level police officers were involved. And then the black guy that was killed, that's the Stephen Lawrence case, right? Yeah. Like that's well known. So they took from the headlines. Why can't the American show do the same?
But I felt like in this particular case, it was more of like an afterthought rather than being fully integrated into the.
It wasn't integrated. It was a throwaway kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking here it would be fully integrated into the story, like for instance, if they were investigating, like let's say like the George Floyd incident, like that would be central in this adaptation than just being a cursory footnote in.
But that to me is interesting, and the reason why it's interesting is it's the other thing that I remember when I watched the OJ documentary, the one that won the Oscar, OJ in Black and White. OJ Made in America, I think it was called. When they talked about the Rodney King beating, they said that all of the officers, when they went back to their precincts, never mentioned anything that happened. Right, like there was no mention of anything. Mm-hmm. The Minneapolis police officers did the same thing. There was no record of, this is what happened, which I think is kind of instructive, right? Like, like you're saying, like, it was just a regular day on patrol. Like, really? Like that kind of thing that internal affairs is like, why'd you do that? Like I think that's kind of an interesting thing to kind of look at, because now if you're reporting it, now you have to admit to something occurring. Yeah. So you don't now, oh shit, there's video, because this is the age we live in. There's video all over the place. Like it's crazy. So like that I think might be instructive and incorporated in an American adaptation, because this is kind of where we are with ICE raids and police officer actions and everything. It's all about my camera phone is here, right? So now my internal affairs officers, now we have to piece together what happened, right? We have this video. Does it tell the whole story? What happened before that? What happened after?
Right. And keep in mind too, I mean, like with Hastings, he really doesn't come into conflict that much up until series 5 and 6, right? Because for the most, I wouldn't say he's on easy street, but he remains untouched. Like he's in his office doing his own little thing. Right. Arnett and Fleming are there. I would say in this case, like the Hastings character in the American adaptation, he's in the trenches. Like he's being stonewalled just as much as everybody else, and I think that would be far more compelling.
Point. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's more compelling for him to be in the loop more. Like, yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that would be interesting, but there's a lot they can do with the times we're in now, because they're really interesting. There's a lot of things you can kind of do with, the demonization of ICE, And if they are the demons, right? Like did they act inappropriately? But did they? Well, what happened here? Well,
yeah,
and
that's
a lot you could do.
And that's the beauty of it, is the fact
Yeah.
that we can still follow, we can stay true to the spirit of what Line of Duty did, but
Yes.
we wouldn't necessarily do the sort of connection where, oh, it's just this one thing where it's like organized crime groups or gangs or whatever, being bedfellows with the police. It's, maybe race relations, or maybe, or maybe there's some sort of like understanding where if they target this sort of group, then this person who's running for office will appear more hard on crime, and that kind of gets him in office.
That's why it's fascinating to look at, because of the implications, because we're so divided right now. This thing happening is a domino effect for like the 2028 presidential primary, right?
Exactly.
So much, right? Like there's so much that could be implicated in a politician speaking out with half the information, and then they're like, "Oh, oops, did I? Well, did I say that?" Like there's a lot. It's honestly, that's really something that showrunners should really lean on, is the times we're in right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
and a lot to explore there, Luca. It really is.
We should probably do a separate episode where we just like geek out and just try to like plan this whole thing, and then
game it out.
If someone from Netflix just happens to see this, I'm more than listen, you can pay me whatever you want as long as I get executive producer credits.
Right? Yeah.
So we'll just have to wait until Line of Duty Series 7 comes out, and then we can.
Do we have a release date? Let me follow up on that. Do we have a release date?
I haven't heard anything. I heard 2020.
I haven't heard anything other than okay. Line of Duty star Martin Compston says season 7 will answer unresolved questions. There you go, Luca.
Yep. There we
have.
So in the meantime, so the next show I want us to take a look at. So we've already explored, one side of the law, right? We've looked at, the police and everything. I've explored your world. I have been very charitable.
You have been very charitable. Thank you. Yes.
So now it's time to delve into my world, where we look at the other side of the law, and we look at the Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinds, yes.
Six seasons, and this time we get to see how the other side of the law does things. And it's a period piece at 1920s Birmingham. Have you seen that show yet?
No, I haven't. It's funny because when we were talking, I was thinking about, I love police shows, but I love foreign police shows. And the other show, a show I love, it's actually one of my favorite shows ever. It's called Spiral. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a French show. And it's basically, the concept behind it is you take a case and it continues to unravel and grow until it just becomes this big thing, right? That's the idea of it.
Yeah, hence the name.
Spiral. Right, exactly. But Peaky Blinders, I'm trying to think how often, because I've never seen The Sopranos. I saw, I don't know, there was an Irish crime family drama that I saw one season of. Rarely do I've never seen the London, it's called, what is it called? Something of London, Kings of London, or Top Boy is another one. I didn't see that.
So I'll give you a taste of Peaky Blinders. So there actually was a gang in Birmingham that operated in the 1920s called the Peaky Blinders, right? But
really?
Right, okay. but it's nothing like what you see in the show.
Okay.
So with the Peaky Blinders in the show itself, it's run by the Shelby family. And what's interesting is that these guys are running like illegal operations in Birmingham. But what's fascinating is that the Shelby boys, the guys who, the men who run this organization, they served in World War I. So these are guys coming back from northern France, having served king and country. Thomas Shelby, he's not the oldest brother, he's like the middle brother, but he's the leader of the group, right? The older brother, Arthur, he's got PTSD. Like,
is that Killian Murphy? Who who does he?
Cillian Murphy plays Thomas Shelby, so he's the middle brother.
Middle brother. Okay.
So what's fascinating is that Thomas Shelby, he comes off as a cold-blooded man, but he's a smart businessman. He was awarded the VC for his service in France. So this guy was a tunneler. So that's what I love about this character, is the fact that he's not just a simple criminal. He's not simply a thug. This is a guy who went out, served his country, risked his life. And if you've seen it, and if you've seen the movie 1917, it's hard to imagine anyone surviving that kind of landscape.
Is 1917 the film that has one take? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So Cillian Murphy plays Thomas Shelby, who runs this organization out of Birmingham.
Okay.
And they kind of and they explore Thomas Shelby trying to make his illegal operations legit. He kind of gets into bed with all these other crime lords and everything, but at the same time he's trying to prove himself to be a legit man. But at the same time, keep in mind, because we're talking about like 2 or 3 years after World War I's ended, he's still trying to deal with what happened.
So he's still kind of experiencing that.
Yeah, he's smoking opium and everything. He can't.
Yeah,
the guy can't sleep. So
okay.
So as the series progresses, we see Thomas Shelby kind of start dealing with other gangs like the Billy Boys, who are like a Protestant gang who kind of like go after Catholics. We see him trying to deal with the mafia, who are trying to get a foothold in England. By the way, one of the mafia guys is played by Adrian Brody, so that's something to take a look at. It's such a fascinating show. Plus, Winston Churchill makes an appearance too, because Winston Churchill, he comes to find out that maybe there's a use for the Peaky Blinders. You can kind of use them as they're kind of like they're kind of like the Black Ops. We could possibly, Dara. That's why I'm so excited for you to watch the show.
This is wild to me. Okay, so is this okay? So you know how like
by the way, I think series 2 they introduced members of the Russian royal family after they fled Russia.
The SARS, like after
just the members of the Romanov family. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, like, I guess my question then is this kind of like an origin story of the gangs in the UK, or is it more?
It's kind of in media res. So like
it's more about the family, kind of.
Right.
Okay,
So when the guys come back from northern France, like the women have been running this organization for a while.
Oh wow. That's very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So Aunt Polly, she's like the matriarch of the family. She's played by it was Helen. She was married to Damian Lewis. She passed away not too long ago.
Oh, Helen McCrory.
Helen, yes.
Oh God.
Helen McCrory plays Aunt Polly.
Okay, got it. She was great. Rest in peace. Yes.
Dara, she is such a fucking badass on that.
Oh my God, I know she was. She's so multi-dimensional. Like the character, she's played so many interesting characters. I just love her. It was so interesting. Yeah, obviously she was older than him, but it was just really sad. I guess she had kept it quiet and then she died. Like, so that was just very sad.
I think her playing Polly is one of the best roles ever. Is she?
Okay. I don't doubt it. I have great respect for her.
Because she kept the home fires burning in Birmingham while they're at war. But also too, we also learn that the Shelby family are half gypsies, right? So there's a sort of like prejudice in the UK about people who are gypsy or half gypsy. So, so besides trying to like become a respectable gang, it's also Thomas Shelby and the family trying to, show themselves to be respectable people in society.
Right.
And as the series progresses, Thomas Shelby, he begins to like kind of like try to make himself more respectable and tries to get elected into Parliament also.
Okay.
So then the question becomes, can he still run the Peaky Blinders while he is a member of the Labour Party? Because he is a member of the Labour Party. Oh, and we also get introduced to Oswald Mosley, who was like the British I guess like Hitler fanboy in the UK in the 30s. We get introduced to Oswald Mosley.
So there are historical figures here.
Stephen Knight does a phenomenal job at weaving fiction and history into this unique narrative, right? And it was done in such a way that I actually had to stop and do some research, because I'm like, okay, so Peaky Blinders were a real thing. The Billy Boys were a real thing, because there were Protestant and Catholic gangs going at each other, because the Shelby family are Catholic, right? So like Oswald Mosley, he kind of has it in with the Protestant gangs, because he kind of wants them to kind of do the dirty work for him. So just like what Churchill uses the Peaky Blinders to kind of get involved in some of the dirty work, because I think he has them like blow up like some I don't know what it is, but he kind of uses them for something some like black ops stuff. And when you get to series 2, let me check this. Series 2, that's when the Peaky Blinders start getting more involved in the whole Irish unification thing, right?
Well, the Peaky Blinders themselves are not. I mean, they're UK. I mean, they are from the UK, but they have gypsy blood, is what you're saying.
Yeah, in the show, and Dara, like I said, it's a great show, because you get to see the Peaky Blinders interact with a lot of these different gangs all over the UK, because they're interacting with the IRA, they're interacting with the Billy Boys, they're interacting with the Jewish gangs and the Italian gangs and the mafia.
Right. Got it. Okay.
And I was gonna say too,
the mafia was in Sicily, right? Like they hadn't gone to the America yet, right? Or no?
It's set in the 20s, so by
right.
that,
so they might have.
Yeah, so by that point, Adrian Brody plays a gangster who's trying to set up shop in the UK. I won't give too much away, but like I said, it's very interesting. And plus, Thomas Shelby falls in love with this woman named Grace, who is the she's played by Annabelle Wallis, who is related to Richard
Wallace.
Yeah. Annabelle Wallis does a phenomenal job. She, I won't give too much away about who she is, but she does come from a very respected British family, right?
Okay, so I'm going to start. Okay, and so I'm going to start that this week.
And then, and I was going to say, series 1 is interesting too, because it's got a bit of a Les Mis vibe, where the police are trying to go after the Peaky Blinders and shut them down. What's his name? Sam Neill from Jurassic Park. He plays.
Whoa. Okay, I like it. Okay.
So Sam Neill is since we're piggybacking off of the whole Line of Duty thing, he's a member of the RUC, right?
I don't know what that is.
Royal Ulster Constabulary.
Okay.
Northern Ireland. So remember Hastings. Hastings was a member of the Royal Ulster Constabulary.
I do remember. Okay, got it. Yeah, I do remember that. That's how he met Corbett's.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So
blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sam Neill plays this detective from the Royal Ulster Constabulary who's charged with investigating gang activity in Birmingham, and it puts him in the conflict with the Peaky Blinders, right? So it becomes a cat and mouse game of, is he going to catch the Peaky Blinders, or is Thomas Shelby going to outwit him?
So this is kind of the foil, right? Like, so
this is series 1.
Okay.
Right, series 1.
Okay, got it. Okay, no, I'm excited. Okay.
So it's an ensemble cast. I genuinely think you're gonna like it, and I think
about it multiple times, so I know you like it. So like
it's and if you think about it, it's a perfect foil to Line of Duty, because whereas with Line of Duty, I know we've talked about how you said that Line of Duty kind of operates in the gray, but there's still distinctions. We know AC-12 represents this side of the law, right? We know what their mission is.
Yeah, no, totally, yeah.
Peaky Blinders. I mean, you want to talk about gray. This is gray as it can get, right?
Completely gray. Okay.
Especially when you come to find out that Winston Churchill kind of gets involved in the whole thing near the end of series 1. But yeah, that's something we can take a look at for next year.
Okay, we'll take a look at that, and then I do want to explore some of the European TV series that I'm finding.
The Day is still on my list, so that's something.
Oh, good. Okay, that's a one-off. That's something we can do as a one-off in between Peaky Blinders. The Day is there's no second season. It's just, this is one of those shows that and I always love perspective shows, right? Like, you know, the Stanley Kubrick The Killing, right?
It's got a Dog Day Afternoon vibe about it. That's
so the day is the robber and the hostages, right? And so it goes back and forth. And so I love that about it. And then it ends and you're like, what? And I'm like, I need someone else. And this is a problem because I like these shows. I don't have anybody to talk to about it. So it's like, I need to talk about this because it's fascinating. So
I would say today is something we can take a look at pretty soon. I still do want to take a look at the Last Duel by Ridley Scott because it's a
You've
good way
talking about that and so that's the Matt Damon Adam Driver
and Jodie Cromer. So that's something so sort of like a palate cleanser. Really, we could take a look at the Last Duel before we dive into.
That sounds great. That works for me.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right, cool. So